Billy's was canceled. She was ready to give up on show business. Her fans weren't ready to give up on her.
They expected a farewell full of nostalgia, maybe a few polite smiles, maybe a soft laugh about old Hollywood. But Donna Douglas's final interview didn't feel like a celebrity sitting in front of a camera. It felt like a gentle, honest soul leaning closer and whispering a truth most people spend their whole lives avoiding. Because in that last conversation, Donna didn't speak like someone clinging to fame. She spoke like someone who had already made peace with the world and only wanted to leave one final gift behind. Before she was a television icon, before millions knew her face, Donna Douglas entered this world with a different name entirely. She was born Doris Ione Smith on September 26, 1932, in Pride, Louisiana. A small place, quiet, humble, the kind of town where people learn early that nothing is handed to you, and everything worth keeping must be earned. She was raised in modest surroundings, and those early years didn't just shape her personality. They built the foundation of her entire life. Growing up during the Great Depression, she learned the value of perseverance, humility, and kindness, not as pretty words, but as survival tools. Those qualities didn't fade when the spotlight arrived. If anything, they became brighter. Even as a young girl, she carried something people noticed. Not just beauty, though that was undeniable, but a grounded presence, a quiet strength, and a work ethic that came from knowing what it means to push through hard seasons. After graduating from high school, she didn't jump straight into the bright lights. She pursued higher education at Centenary College in Shreveport, Louisiana, where she studied drama and speech. And this matters because it wasn't luck that later carried her career. She trained, she prepared, she worked for it. Her early interest in performance matched her natural poise, and her striking appearance opened doors far beyond the classroom. Soon, she began gaining national attention through beauty pageants, earning titles like Miss Baton Rouge and Miss Louisiana. But even then, she wasn't simply collecting crowns. Those titles became stepping stones. And when the time came, she took the biggest step of all. She headed to New York City in the early 1950s, a move that must have felt like walking into a different universe compared to Louisiana. Imagine the contrast, the grounded quiet of Pride versus the speed, the noise, the competition of New York, a place where dreams are everywhere, and so are disappointments. In New York, she worked as a model and appeared in television commercials, gradually building confidence and industry connections. Not overnight, not with instant success, but piece by piece, like someone assembling a future with her own hands. And then came the acting work. Her early career included guest appearances on popular television programs such as The Twilight Zone, Route 66, The Adventures of Azie and Harriet, and 77 Sunset Strip. These roles showed what people in the industry were beginning to realize. She wasn't just a pretty face in front of a camera. She had presence, she had charm, she could hold the screen, and still none of it prepared her for what would happen next. Because there are moments in a person's life where everything divides into two parts, before and after. And for Donna Douglas, that dividing line was coming. Not in New York, not in the pageants, not even in the early guest roles, but in a casting decision that would transform her name into a permanent part of American television history. And the most haunting part? Decades later, in that final interview, she would look back on that after with gratitude. Not because it made her famous, but because of what it allowed her to give to others. The turning point didn't come with fireworks. There was no dramatic announcement, no sense that history was about to be made. It came quietly, in the form of an audition. When Donna Douglas was called in to read for a new television series, she had no way of knowing that this single moment would reshape her entire life. The show was called The Beverly Hillbillies, a comedy about a poor Southern family who suddenly strike oil and move to California. On paper, it sounded simple, almost silly, but television history has a way of hiding inside simple ideas. Donna auditioned for the role of Ellie Mae Clampett, the beautiful, kind-hearted daughter of the Clampett family. The character was written as innocent, warm, and deeply connected to nature. Many actresses tried out, many were considered, yet the moment Donna walked into the room, something clicked. It wasn't just her looks. It was the authenticity she carried with her. She didn't play Ellie Mae. In many ways, she already understood her. The humility, the gentleness, the Southern roots. Those weren't things Donna had to fake. They were part of who she was. When she got the role, she stepped into a world that would soon explode beyond anything she could have imagined. The Beverly Hillbillies premiered in 1962, and almost instantly it became a phenomenon. Viewers didn't just like the show, they loved it. Week after week, millions tuned in. Families gathered around their televisions. Conversations stopped when the opening theme began, and at the center of it all was Ellie Mae. Donna's portrayal was warm, sincere, and unforgettable. She brought intelligence and heart to a character that could have easily been reduced to a stereotype. Instead of playing Ellie Mae as a joke, she gave her dignity. She made audiences care. Ratings soared. For 9 seasons, the show dominated television, becoming one of the most watched series of its time. Donna Douglas became a household name. Her face was everywhere. Magazine covers, interviews, fan mail arriving by the truckload. But behind the smiles and success, there was something far more complicated happening. Because fame, when it arrives suddenly, doesn't ask whether you're ready. And in her final interview, Donna would later admit something few celebrities are brave enough to say out loud. That level of recognition came with a cost. She was grateful, deeply grateful, but she was also quietly boxed in. Ellie Mae became iconic, but that same icon made it difficult for Hollywood to see her as anything else. Offers came in, yes, but many of them felt like echoes of the same role, the same expectations, the same narrow vision of who she was allowed to be on a screen. Still, Donna never spoke with bitterness. In that last interview, she reflected on those years not with regret, but with understanding. She knew that Ellie Mae gave her a platform, a voice, a way to reach people far beyond the television screen, and she chose to use it with grace. As the series came to an end in 1971, many expected her to chase fame even harder. Bigger roles, louder projects, a desperate attempt to stay relevant. Instead, Donna Douglas did something unexpected. She stepped back, and that decision revealed more about her character than any role ever could. When the Beverly Hillbillies ended, the world assumed Donna Douglas would do what most stars do. Keep chasing the next big role. Keep chasing the next spotlight. Keep chasing the same applause that once felt endless. But Donna wasn't built that way. She didn't panic. She didn't scramble. She didn't try to prove anything. Instead, she moved through the next chapter of her life with a quiet steadiness. that almost felt rare in Hollywood. Yes, she continued acting. She appeared in films and television projects after the show, including roles in movies like Frankie and Johnny and later appearances on various programs, but it became increasingly clear that Hollywood still wanted her to be only one thing, Ellie Mae. And that's where many people would have hardened, many would have turned bitter, many would have blamed the industry and carried that anger like a weight. Donna did not. In her final interview, she spoke about her career with an unusual calm, like someone who had already made peace with what the world could give and what it never would. She understood something important. Fame is loud, but it's not permanent. And if you build your identity on it, you will collapse when it fades. So Donna built her life on something else. Over time, she leaned into passions that had nothing to do with red carpets or ratings. She became involved in music, including gospel and inspirational recordings, and she performed and traveled, connecting with audiences in a more personal way than television ever allowed. She also pursued public speaking, meeting fans face to face, not as a distant star, but as a real person. And that's when people noticed the truth about Donna Douglas. She didn't just perform kindness, she lived it. Fans often described her as warm, gracious, and approachable, the kind of person who looked you in the eye when she spoke, the kind of person who made you feel like you mattered, even if you were just one face in a long line. But behind that grace, life wasn't always as simple. Donna's personal life included a marriage to actor Robert M. Leeds. They had a son together, Danny, and although the marriage eventually ended in divorce, she remained devoted to her role as a mother. And in that final interview, you could hear it in her voice, how deeply she valued family and how much she treasured what truly mattered when the cameras were gone. And then, as the years passed, something even more challenging appeared. A legal battle over her name and image. Donna Douglas became involved in a lawsuit related to the marketing and use of her identity connected to the Beverly Hillbillies. It wasn't tabloid drama, it wasn't attention-seeking, it was about dignity, about control, about the right to protect the name she had built through decades of work. And she fought calmly but firmly, because even though she was gentle, she was not weak. That's a detail many people miss about Donna Douglas. They remember the sweet smile, the soft charm, the innocent Ellie Mae image. But Donna had steel underneath, and in her last interview, it became clear she didn't measure success by awards or headlines. She measured it by peace, by knowing she stayed true to herself even when the world tried to rewrite her. And that's why the final stage of her life feels so emotional, because she wasn't holding on to celebrity. She was preparing to leave something behind that mattered more. One final message, one final truth. And when she finally spoke it, it hit like a quiet thunder. By the time Donna Douglas sat down for her final interview, there was nothing left to prove, no role to chase, no image to protect, no audience to impress. And that's exactly why her words carried so much weight. Her voice was calm, not weak, not tired, just steady. The kind of steadiness that only comes from someone who has already looked back on their life and accepted every chapter, the good, the difficult, the misunderstood. She didn't talk about ratings. She didn't talk about Hollywood gossip. She didn't even talk much about fame. Instead, Donna spoke about gratitude. She spoke about how blessed she felt to have grown up with strong values and how those values protected her when the spotlight became overwhelming. She talked about how success can disappear overnight, but character stays with you until the end. And then she said something that stunned people. She admitted that many assume fame brings happiness, but in her experience, peace came from something much quieter, from faith, from simplicity, from knowing who you are when no one is watching. In that interview, she reflected on her time as Ellie Mae not as a burden, but as a responsibility. She understood how deeply the character had touched people, how Ellie Mae represented innocence in a world that often feels too sharp, too rushed, too cynical. Donna seemed proud not because she was remembered, but because she had been trusted to bring warmth into millions of homes, trusted to make people smile during hard times, trusted to be someone families could watch together. And then her tone shifted. Not dramatically, not emotionally, just honestly. She spoke about life being fragile, about time moving faster than we expect, about how quickly someday becomes never. And in that moment, it was clear she wasn't speaking as a television icon anymore. She was speaking as a human being. She urged people not to chase applause, but to chase purpose. Not to measure their worth by how many people recognize them, but by how many lives they touch in quiet ways. And perhaps the most powerful part, she showed no fear, no bitterness, no resentment, no unfinished anger, only acceptance. When the interview ended, there was no dramatic farewell, no tears, no theatrical goodbye, just a sense that something rare had happened. A public figure had spoken privately to millions. And not long after, on January 1st, 2015, Donna Douglas passed away at the age of 82. The news spread quietly, but the reaction was immediate. Fans shared memories. Old clips resurfaced. Messages poured in from people who felt like they had lost someone familiar, someone comforting. Because Donna Douglas wasn't remembered as a scandal. She wasn't remembered as a headline. She was remembered as a feeling. And that final interview, it wasn't an ending. It was a reminder that a life lived with humility, grace, and truth leaves an echo far louder than fame ever could. After Donna Douglas was gone, something surprising happened. The world didn't just remember her as a classic TV star. People remembered her as comfort. Because when fans looked back, they didn't just see Ellie Mae Clampett on the screen. They saw a piece of simpler America, a time when families sat together at night, when laughter was shared in the same room, when television felt like a warm blanket instead of noise. And Donna became one of the faces of that feeling. In the years after her passing, tributes poured in from all directions. Fans, old colleagues, classic TV communities, people who grew up watching her, and even younger audiences who discovered the show later and felt the same charm. That's the thing about true warmth. It doesn't expire. But the legacy Donna Douglas left wasn't only about entertainment. It was about what she represented. She represented a kind of beauty that didn't need cruelty, a kind of fame that didn't need arrogance, a kind of success that didn't destroy the person underneath it. Ellie Mae was often portrayed as innocent and as sweet, but Donna gave her something deeper. She gave her honesty. That's why viewers believed her. That's why the character still feels alive decades later. You weren't watching an actress perform. You were watching a personality that felt real. And that's why people still talk about her with affection instead of curiosity. Because Donna's image didn't feel manufactured. It felt human. Even in her later years, Donna continued connecting with audiences through personal appearances, interviews, and public speaking. She wasn't hiding. She wasn't trying to disappear. She simply lived her life with dignity. And when she showed up as herself. And that final interview became the centerpiece of her legacy. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was truthful. In a world that rewards noise, Donna's power came from calm. In a culture obsessed with youth, she radiated something stronger than youth. She radiated peace. And that peace made people listen. Her story also became a lesson about the way Hollywood works, how one iconic role can make you famous and also trap you inside a single image. Yet Donna's response to that reality was what made her truly admirable. She didn't let the industry decide her worth. She decided it herself. She focused on the things that endure: faith, family, gratitude, and the quiet ability to make people feel seen. And perhaps that's why her legacy remains so gentle and so strong at the same time, because Donna Douglas didn't leave behind a scandal. She left behind a reminder that you don't have to be loud to be unforgettable, and you don't have to chase the spotlight to leave a mark. Sometimes the most powerful legacy is simply being remembered as kind. If you listen closely to Donna Douglas's final interview, there's a moment where the conversation stops feeling like a normal sit down and starts feeling like a goodbye. Not a dramatic goodbye, not a sad goodbye, a calm goodbye. Because Donna wasn't trying to be remembered as a legend. She was trying to be understood as a person. She spoke about time the way someone speaks when they finally realize time isn't an enemy. It's a teacher. A strict one, yes, but honest. And the older you get, the clearer the lessons become. In that interview, she didn't brag about what she achieved. She emphasized what she valued. She talked about gratitude as if it were a choice she made every day, not an emotion she waited for. She talked about faith as if it were an anchor, not a performance. And she spoke about her life with a tone that made one thing painfully clear. She had lived long enough to understand that fame is not the finish line. Fame is just noise. And when the noise fades, what's left is who you really were. That's why her words hit so hard. Because even though Donna Douglas had been adored by millions, she never spoke like someone who believed she was above anyone. She didn't carry herself like royalty. She carried herself like a neighbor, like a friend, like someone who knew the world could be cold and chose warmth anyway. And then came the part that truly stayed with people. She didn't sound afraid of dying. That kind of peace is rare. Most people spend their lives distracted, chasing, running, proving, coping, because sitting still means facing uncomfortable truths. But Donna sounded like she had already faced them. She sounded like someone who had forgiven the world and forgiven herself. And that's the quiet truth hidden inside her final words. She wasn't trying to convince anyone of anything. She wasn't trying to leave behind a perfect legacy. She was simply offering a final reminder. Be grateful while you still can. Love people while they're still here. And don't wait for someday to start living, because someday doesn't always come. And when her life ended on January 1st, 2015, it didn't feel like a celebrity story closing. It felt like a gentle light going out, but the warmth stayed. Even now, people will still find her interviews, still rewatch her scenes, still talk about her smile, and feel something they can't quite explain. And maybe that's the most powerful proof of all. Donna Douglas didn't just entertain America, she comforted it. And in her final interview, she did it one last time without a script, without a role, without a performance, just truth. Long after the camera stopped rolling, Long after the interviews ended, long after the applause faded, Donna Douglas's story continues to resonate in a way that feels almost unexpected, because her life quietly challenges the modern idea of success. Today, fame is louder than ever, faster, more aggressive, measured in clicks, numbers, and constant visibility. But Donna's journey reminds us of something deeply uncomfortable and deeply true. You can be loved by millions and still choose humility. You can reach the top and still walk away with grace. You can be remembered without ever demanding attention. What makes her story endure isn't nostalgia alone, it's contrast. In a world that encourages people to build personas, Donna Douglas lived as herself. In an industry that rewards reinvention at any cost, she chose consistency. And in a culture obsessed with youth, she aged without apology. Her final interview didn't go viral because it was shocking. It stayed with people because it was honest. She didn't promise happiness. She didn't sell inspiration. She didn't perform wisdom. She simply shared what she had learned, softly, sincerely, without asking for anything in return. And that's why people still feel something when they hear her voice. Because beneath the fame, beneath Ellie Mae, beneath the decades of television history, there was a woman who understood something many never do. That peace is louder than applause, that kindness outlives recognition, and that a life doesn't need to be perfect to be complete. Donna Douglas didn't leave behind a mystery. She left behind clarity, and maybe that's the greatest gift she could have given. This wasn't just the story of a television star. It was the story of someone who knew when to shine and when to let go. A reminder that when everything else disappears, what truly remains is how you made people feel. And Donna Douglas made people feel safe, warm, seen. That's why her final interview still echoes today, not as a farewell, but as a quiet lesson, still waiting to be heard.